Hello, and welcome to a Postgres webcast. This is an introduction to PostgresSQL. We're going to talk about installing and using Postgres. This is part one of many. The structure to these videos is that we're going to have the dry run slides first, followed by command line walkthroughs. So if you find that you get bored with the slides, you can just skip to the second part of each video, which is going to be a command line walkthrough. Before I go too deep into this webcast, I want to tell you about a wonderful book that I found called PostgresSQL Up and Running. If you want to really nail PostgresSQL out of the gate, you're going to need this book. There should be an affiliate link below. Click that link. It'll take you straight to Amazon.com and you can get a copy of this book. But as I said, if you really want to hit the ground running and you want to knock your Postgres efforts out, knock the Postgres ball out of the park, so to speak, you're going to need this book, especially if you're just getting started. So don't hesitate to pause this video and get the book. Now, the scope of this webcast is that it's going to help people who are just getting started with Postgres. It's going to show those people the basics, and it's the basics of actually installing, and it's going to show them the basics of actually using Postgres. So I guess there's a two-part goal with these videos. One is the first and simple part is to show you how to install it, and then the second part is to show you how to use it. Now, the audience is someone who is totally new to database administration or database development, and maybe they need a Postgres server to kind of practice on. This video will show you how to, pretty much install it and get running. It could also be for people who may have some experience. You may be an experienced Microsoft DBA, or you may be an experienced Oracle DBA. And while this won't be probably comprehensive or maybe on the level that you're on, it will generally point you in the right direction. So we have a few objectives with this video. We want to talk about what Postgres actually is. We want to look at the installation prerequisites. And we want to look at the configuration, build, and install phases of getting this thing installed, so to speak. After which, we're going to talk about cleaning up unneeded files or cleaning up unneeded install files. What is PostgresSQL? Well, it's a popular open source database. Now, there are several other databases out there that claim to be open source. But when you investigate and you find that these databases are now owned by corporations, you'll find that it's truly not open source, because you could potentially run into issues when you go to, use that open source database and find out that there are restricted, or there are kind of like some pitfall licensing issues. So PostgresSQL, or I'll just say Postgres, is one of the only databases out there. Well, not one of the only, but it's one of the most popular databases out there that you can say is open source. As a matter of fact, if you consider that it's not owned by a corporation, I can say that it is definitely going to be the #1 open source database, because it's not owned by a corporation. If you think there's a #1 database out there, check to see if it's owned by a corporation. If it's owned by a corporation, chances are it's not really open source. So, and when we're talking about open source, we basically mean that you can use the database or you can use the product without the risk of being sued. The only way I think that you can get sued by using PostgresSQL is if you take the software or the database, whatever you choose to call it. If you take the database and you say, you know what, I like this code, I'm going to, take PostgresSQL, I'm going to take that name and change it and call it my database SQL, meaning that you're putting your name on it or something like that, and then you resell it and you decide to go and sell it. Well, yeah, you're going to get sued, because you're not following the open source licensing structure. The way the open source licensing structure works, to my understanding, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong with comments in the suggestion box below. My understanding of the open source licensing is that basically you can use it to build your own website or build your own application and not worry about getting sued. Okay, so that's my understanding of open source licensing. Now, before you get into installing Postgres, there are bound to be some prerequisites, meaning some software modules you'll need to have before you go to the next step of actually installing it, or before you actually, not the next step, but the first step is to make sure you meet all the prerequisites, and then the second step is actually install it. So before you actually jump into installing Postgres, you need to make sure that you meet all the prerequisites. You must have several pieces of software installed that Postgres is going to require in order for it to run properly. Now, with the operating system that we've chosen, which is the Linux 6 family, and the Linux 6 family is going to be, well, hold on a second. The Linux 6 family, what I'm meaning to say is the Red Hat family, right? Red Hat 6 family. And the Red Hat family in general is going to be Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Fedora, and it's going to be CentOS. Now, before I go to install Postgres, I'll need to make sure I have several pieces of software installed. And those are going to be readline, a C compiler, zlib, flex, bison. Telnet is a more nice to have because we're going to use it to test our installation. You'll also need Perl, which is typically already installed in Linux 6. If you want to check, you can just go to the command line and type Perl, all lowercase, -- version, and it'll tell you. And a secure FTP client, maybe SFTP or SCP, would be really nice to have, especially if you're going to be copying the files back and forth from your Linux server to your home network. Now, when you get ready to configure and build and install these files, if you're using Yum, you have to be aware that the version of Postgres that you're going to get via Yum is going to depend on the version of your operating system. So in this case, we're going to use Linux 6, so Red Hat 6. I'm just going to say Red Hat 6 default for the Red Hat family, but I'm actually using CentOS. So if we're going to use Red Hat 6, the version of Postgres we would receive would be version 8.4. Now, that is a bit of a problem for us because, since this is kind of a exploration for us, we want to just go ahead and explore the latest and the greatest. And 8.4 is a pretty old version. So we're going to just go ahead and pursue other means of getting a copy of the Postgres packages to install. We are going to use the wget utility to download the packages directly from the repository, or the website, so to speak. So wget is pretty easy to use. You just simply type wget, and then you provide the URL of the package. Basically, you provide the location of the package, where this package lives on the internet. And after we get those packages, we're going to unzip and we're going to untar them. And from there, we're going to do what's called a .configure and a gmake. Now, the way .configure works, well, first let me just talk about what type of software this is. Traditionally, well, sometimes you'll come across applications to be installed on Linux that is just nothing more but a bunch of scripts, and it just, the procedure for that, and maybe it's not a script, but, generally the procedure for installing several types of Linux applications is to simply copy the directory structure into the location where you want it, and maybe create some symbolic links, or I mean not symbolic links, but you'll add the path to the application to your path to your profile, right? If you're using a C-based application, you'll find that what you have to do is recompile the application, simply because C programs have to be compiled because of the way the programming language works, right? So what we're going to do is that we're going to run .configure, and .configure is going to take the settings of our operating system, and then it's going to load those settings up into the, what's the word I want to use here? Maybe we'll just say pre-compilation configuration, so to speak. So we're basically taking the OS settings and we're preparing it to be used in the recompiling of our source code, right? So that's the gist of it. So the .configure is going to do that. And then the gmake is actually building out the packages, or setting up the packages to be installed, right? So after we do the .configure, the next step is to do the gmake. And after the gmake, we're going to do something else, which is called the gmake install, which is basically, at this point, is like saying, okay, we've configured the code to our server, okay, and we build it out, that configuration. The next thing we want to do is use that configuration to install on our server, and we do that with the gmake install command. I hope I've explained this right. If I'm off and you think you can explain it better, definitely use the comment section below. Okay, so after we finished installing Postgres, you'll find that there are several files and directories left over that we no longer need. Now, good house cleaning dictates that you want to definitely remove these files and directories. Otherwise, if you keep the habit of keeping stuff around that you don't need, you're going to end up with a file structure that's always full. So since you're aware that you need to clean up, you may as well do it right away. So you can clean up the leftover files and directories with a gmake clean and a gmake disk clean command. So we're pretty much at the end of this webcast. I just want to let you know that if you really want to knock this thing out of the ballpark, you want to be a PostgresSQL guru, you want to float on the magic carpet, well, you're going to need this book to start off. I'd say that getting this book is going to be the equivalent of going to get that magic carpet, right? I mean, once you buy the magic carpet, you still need to, do several exercises and training to, learn how to float properly. But buying this book is going to basically be the first step in the right direction. It's going to be like going to buy the magic carpet, and then you need to actually read the book so you can float. So there should be an affiliate link below. I'll try to embed one in this video. I'm not really good with video making tools, but I'll try to. But for the most part, there should be an Amazon affiliate link below. Definitely click that, and it's going to take you to Amazon.com where you can buy the book. Now, as I said, there's going to be a follow-up video. It's going to be a command line walkthrough. Definitely, you want to check that out. Definitely subscribe to my page. I'm going to try to produce or pump out instructional or just kind of talks on technology in general. I'm a technophile, if you will. So definitely subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, and concerns, I love to hear them. Leave them below in the suggestion box or in the comments box. And if you need to contact me for some strange reason, send me an email. I'm on Gmail, dynamicdavidmartin386 at gmail.com. And thank you for watching.